All right. All right.
Come on,
Anyways.
we talking about the show. You
All right, y'all. So normally we post that's left over from the Michigan game. Normally we post on our YouTube channel. If you guys haven't subscribed there, make sure you guys go check that out. Scroll down just a little. Scroll down just a little bit on the podcast Facebook page, and you'll see the link a bunch of times there. No, you good, bro? Hey,
it went down the wrong hole.
Hey, now relax.
That's that Georgia sweet tea.
But today we're just gonna kind of briefly go over all of the bowl or the majority of the bowl games, the college ball playoff. Talk a little bit about Deion Sanders. We're gonna talk about last week's conference championships. And kind of get some interaction from you guys. This is obviously our first time going live, so it's a little bit different. So bear with us. But just to kind of kick things off, you're lagging a little bit, but you're good now. Just to kind of kick things off, what stood out from you from championship Saturday?
So obviously the two big, I guess we'll say upsets, right? That they kind of allowed Ohio State. They really kind of shook up the college football playoffs and allowed Ohio State to sneak in. First, let me give all the props in the world to Max Duggan. That guy showed the heart of a lion. That game back and forth, just like the first TCU Kansas State game. I got to give all the props in the world. I don't think they're going to do well against, and we'll talk about the rankings, but against Michigan. But showed all the heart in the world. But also got to give shout out to Kansas State, who was able to pull that game off. Second part of that is, and I know we were talking a little bit at the beginning of the game, but USC not being able to pull it off. I just think they're not there yet. The offense looks ready. Caleb Williams actually had a pretty decent game, but that defense, right? You give up 47 points to Utah. The fact that Utah was able to beat them again, and then really kind of beat them so convincingly. USC cannot tackle. I don't know what is going on,
it's bad.
But I have never seen a team miss that many tackles, and especially a game that meant this much to USC. Obviously, if they win, they're in, and they could not tackle me, and I'm 42.
My biggest takeaways from championship Saturday was it was underwhelming in my opinion. Just because it was kind of like the way I saw it was the top three teams could lose. They're still going to get in, which is kind of stupid. I mean, I think this is the first year that it's been like that to where there wasn't much drama. Outside of the 4 spot. And even then, so I'm going to have 2 separate rants. This is going to be the first one. So my first kind of rant is going to be not even a rant. It's frustrating because so TCU and USC lost, and that eventually opened the door for Ohio State, who eventually got in over USC. But there was still this narrative that Alabama was still in the conversation. I get that they were ranked at 6 or 7 at the time. But if you were going to put a 2-loss SEC team who didn't make it to the conference championship over, okay, here let me backtrack.
Well, wait. I think it's more to that, right? Because Ohio State didn't make it to the conference championship,
but Ohio State has 1 loss. So my entire argument is, so you had the 4 spot that eventually freed up for either Ohio State, USC, or quote unquote Alabama. So my thought process was it had to have been USC or Ohio State. To me, Alabama wasn't in that conversation.
Well, so I think to really kind of throw this really to where Alabama probably felt at least that they had an opportunity, I think we have to throw TCU in there as well. Now, obviously, TCU got the 3 seed, but I think Alabama felt like if TCU doesn't win their conference, if they lost to Kansas State, which obviously is what happened, that then you have to throw their resume against Alabama's. To me, I think it was a name notoriety thing, right? I think Alabama was hoping that SEC bias would continue to show its face. And TCU, who, let's just be honest, this is facts. They probably don't have as big of a fan base as Alabama. They're probably not as big of a draw as Alabama. And I'll be honest, I think if Alabama faced TCU, Alabama would beat TCU. So just like you heard Nick Saban's kind of rant, his thing was, are the 4 best teams getting in, or are we kind of awarding the 4 best resumes?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, it should be the four bet. It should be the four best resume. Alex says, "Do you think Vegas would have put their money on TCU or Alabama? Hypothetically, it would have been Alabama. But I
Alabama.
mean, I think, I mean, if we're gonna think about it that way, I think there's only one team in the country that wouldn't be a favorite. That would be a favorite over Alabama, and that's Georgia. I think every other team would be underdogs to
Yeah, so
Alabama.
I believe I seen something. I don't know if it was hypothetical or not. But I did see it on ESPN right before results came out, and it literally had that Alabama would be favored in each game except unless
Georgia,
they
right?
play, except for Georgia. Yes.
So, well, my point to kind of circle back was, so even on the selection show, throughout like all last night and then this morning, they kept putting Alabama's logo with like the percentage to win. Obviously, everybody in here knows that I'm a Clemson fan. I know that Clemson was not getting in. And not
Right.
only so, how I don't understand how Alabama was still in the same conversation with the playoff, but Clemson wasn't, when Alabama has 2 top 25 wins, Clemson has 2 top 25 wins. Alabama has 2 top 25 losses. Clemson has two top 25 losses. But the only difference is Clemson has an ACC championship, and they didn't even go to the SEC championship. And we can't say it's because they lost to better teams. Yes, they lost to Tennessee and LSU. We lost to Notre Dame and South Carolina. They're both ranked. So it's
to play
it's
devil's
hard to
advocate, because I continue to hear this argument all day. Alabama's stake was really kind of relying on two things. One, that they were playing better at the end of the season. Their last 3 games, they obviously won. 2, that they lost 2 games by 4 points in total, both of them SEC games on the road. Again, I'm not saying that carries weight, but that is the argument that I've heard time and time again today. The 2 losses on the road by not less than 4 points, but by 4 points total.
Yeah, so I'm sure a lot of you in here use the Bleacher Report app. So I use it every day. I go on every day. Last night was the first time that I actually made a post and was commenting on there. And there's a lot of posts saying Alabama should get in because both their losses come, like you just said, within 4. But people fail to realize the key word in that statement is both of their losses. They lost twice. And not only did they lose twice, TCU and Ohio State only lost once. Not only that, a lot of Alabama's games were 1-possession games. So it's not like they were blowing everyone out and then they just have 2 losses that were within 4 points. They had a lot of close games.
Well, the other part where you see the bias, which to me makes no sense, and the Clemson thing is probably name, notoriety, schedule, a whole bunch of.
But but again, I don't think Clemson should have got in. So I'll be the first to say that.
But I still don't understand how Tennessee was ranked behind Alabama when they played head to head. They have the same record. Neither one of them. I see you, Flo. Neither one of them won they basically kind of ended the season in the same place. Now, the only argument would be Tennessee obviously looked really bad against South Carolina, and obviously Hendon Hooker is out for the season. But resume to resume, Tennessee beat Alabama head to head. How are they ranked behind Alabama when they won the head to head matchup?
Yeah, it's pretty frustrating when you think about it. But I mean, at the end of the day, none of these teams are in the playoff. So I mean, it really doesn't matter. But that moves me on to my next point. I was gonna save this for later, but I'm gonna go ahead and get this out the way now.
Go ahead, get it out.
So let me go ahead and pull this up. 1 second, guys. Let me pull this up.
He going deep. This boy did research and homework.
So we're gonna look at the rankings here, and I'm going to kind of, mind you, this, I don't care that Clemson is where they're at. That's not what I'm saying. As a college football fan, bowl season is like the pinnacle of college football. That everybody looks forward to it, and that's the last taste of college football that you get before the 7 to 8 month off season where you get no college football. And when I look at the top 4, I don't have a problem with it. I'm cool with that. That's the top 4. I have no problem with it. But when I look at the rest of this rankings, historically, I get that every bowl game has a tie-in. So the Rose Bowl has the Big Ten and the Pac-12. Cool. I'm okay. Whatever. Rose Bowl is a Pac-12 venue. That's fine. But when you start getting into the teens of from 10 to 20, 10 to 19, There's a problem when number 13 Florida State is the second highest ranked ACC team, and they're playing a 6-6 Oklahoma in a bowl game. That is not okay. I'm not a Florida State fan. Anybody who knows me knows.
Off the top, what is the ACC's? What I know the ACC has a tie-in with the Orange Bowl.
So
does
Orange
the ACC
Bowl
have another tie-in?
Orange Bowl, Gator Bowl, Cheez-It Bowl, Duke's Mayo Bowl, I believe.
So the problem is just the quality of the bowls that the ACC has a tie-in with,
but not necessarily. Not necessarily, because if you look at, so for example, the ACC obviously goes to the Orange Bowl.
Yes.
If Florida State is playing a 6-6 Oklahoma, who is barely bowl eligible, and then you have a team like, for example, Tulane playing USC. Tulane should not be playing USC. I get that they won their conference and they're the highest rate, they're highest ranked out of, or group of 5 or out of Power 5 conference. Fine, whatever. I think when the college football playoff expansion starts, if I was the head of college football, I would redo the entire bowl system. It shouldn't be Utah should play Mississippi State because of a tie-in. They should literally go one by one and just match up the next 2 teams over and over until you go down. So that way you know it's going to be a good game regardless.
Obviously, a lot of this is going to get shaken up after next season when we go to the 12-team playoff. A lot of this is going to get shaken up.
Yeah, I don't like the fact that, like I said, you have Florida State who had a great year. They had a great finish to the year, and they're playing a team who was barely bowl eligible. That to me, that doesn't make any sense.
So real quick, to Alex's point, Saban, I think, is already trying to do this. If you look at so what he can't do is change, and I think the SEC has to play, I don't know if it's 8 or 9 games against SEC teams. Obviously, he has to play every team in the SEC West. So if you look at their out of conference games, now normally they have one good out of conference game. This year it was Texas, and then they play 2 FCS teams every year. Notre Dame has done this every year. We talked about this when they just played who like 2 weeks ago?
Who?
Alabama. Austin P. Yeah. I mean, so they do this every year. They're out of conference. They play 1 marquee out of conference game and then 2 literal cakewalks. And so I don't think that's going to change.
No, and also just to kind of go off of that point a little bit, I know we're going off on a tangent here, but just bear with us. But that kind of goes into the whole conference realignment. When you look at Oklahoma and Texas going to the SEC, in reality, they're hurting themselves because when the new expansion happens, a conference champion gets an automatic bid. So
yes.
What is the point of going to join the SEC when?
But you got to remember,
go ahead.
There's 7 at-large bids, right? I mean, really, your top 12 teams, I guess you would say, are going to make the playoffs. I mean, that's
but so even
if I'm not,
even then, when you look at, so let's say Oklahoma. Okay, let's just not even include them too. Let's just say, so in the SEC, you got Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, A&M. Let's just say you got those 4. So there's only going to be 1 conference champion. Not only that, but all of those teams are going to have to play each other. So
so even if we looked at it from this year, right? This year, you'd probably be talking about 3 SEC teams: Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee.
And I mean, and really, that's not even a lot when you think about. I mean, you got Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, so that's 3.
Right.
Then you have in the Pac-12, you have Utah, USC, Washington, and USC, Washington, and just Utah. So that's 3. So really, and like I said, when you add USC and UCLA to the Big Ten, when you add Oklahoma and Texas to the SEC, that's just going to make it harder for those other teams. It's going to make it harder for them as well as the other teams, but it's going to make it easier for teams in the Pac-12, easier for teams in the ACC, and easier for the Big 12.
Maybe a team, right? Because I think you're going to see a number of SEC teams, right? I would not be surprised if
3 or 4
year happens where there's 4 SEC teams in. If you win a conference championship, you're in. But even if we just said the top 12, as you have the rankings still on the board, the top 12 this year makes it, you're talking about two Pac-12 teams. If you look, you're talking 2 Big 12 teams, 3 Big Ten teams, 3 SEC teams.
Actually, not necessarily. Wait.
But only 1 ACC team. So the only conference who would really get screwed by this is the ACC.
But I don't. It's a little bit different though, because when the time comes, there's not going to be divisions anymore.
Right,
right. At least for the ACC. I don't know about for the Big Ten, but at least for the ACC. So
Big Ten hasn't changed yet.
Okay, so we wouldn't have even played UNC. We would have played Florida State. That's who we would have ended up playing. So that, I mean, it would have completely changed all of this, obviously. Even though we already played them once. But we'll kind of come back to that later. But moving on, we'll go ahead and talk about, one second, kind of the talk of college football right now. I mean, that's Deion Sanders accepting the job on a 5-year deal to go to Colorado. This has been everywhere. I'll go ahead and let my dad talk about it a little bit. We kind of had the conversation, but I'll let you give your thoughts on it.
Yeah. So my first thing is this, man, I'll be the first to say, and these are going to be competing points. I wish that Deion would have stayed at Jackson State, but I'm not mad at him for moving to Colorado. Deion Sanders owes nothing to HBCUs. And if he does owe anything, he's already paid that times 100. He has shined a light and brought exposure to all HBCU teams, right? Even at Jackson State, he's given up salary. He's helped update the facilities. He has done everything that you're supposed to do, right? The fact that we're even talking about HBCUs, the fact that we're even talking about Jackson State is because of Deion Sanders, his name, and what he was able to do. At the end of the day, the only people that I'm somewhat concerned about are the kids that Deion Sanders may have recruited to Jackson State, right? If he did not tell them, if they went there assuming that, hey, I'm going to play under Deion Sanders for 4 years, that's a conversation he needs to have with them. And I'm going to assume that he's had that conversation. I'm going to assume, honestly, that you're going to see a lot of those kids move to Colorado or other D1s, right? I think Travis Hunter will probably end up in Colorado. I think his son will probably end up in Colorado. But beyond that, man, he has paid it forward 10 times. And it's not his job to put HBCUs and the exposure on his back solely, right? There are a number of high-profile athletes that can go coach in HBCU. I can name 15 off the top of my head. He did his part. We don't, in the Black community, and I'm not trying to make this a race thing, but in the Black community, we don't get on every single Black coach that doesn't coach at HBCU. So why are we going to get on Deion Sanders, who did coach in HBCU but decided to go to Colorado, right? We don't knock Marcus Freeman for taking the Notre Dame job instead of taking the Southern job, right? And then we continue to complain about exposure in D1 with coaches, right? So Deion Sanders, as a Black man, as a Black coach, is going to bring, hopefully, exposure to that, right? Hopefully he can go be successful. I'm hoping he can go be successful in Colorado. And he may be a linchpin that leads to more Black coaches getting head coaching jobs at D1s. I think it's all for the positive, but most importantly, Deion Sanders, who just won the SWAC, has nothing to prove left in the SWAC. But as a coach, he may just want, this is a competitive guy. This is an NFL Hall of Famer who's a super competitive guy. He may want to test his mantle against the Nick Sabans, the Kirby Smarts, right? Can I recruit? Can I build a program at that level? Can I, right? Hey, he did it at Jackson State. That team went undefeated last year. 3 years there as a coach, they were undefeated last year. I think won every game except for one by double digits. Now, hey, he may just as a coach, as a man, he may just be saying, let me go see if I can go do it on the biggest level. Let's be honest. Yes, he was able to pull off some top recruits, right? In Travis Hunter. And but does he have the recruiting budget that he's going to have at Colorado? No. Does he have the facility budget that he's going to have at Colorado? No. So to really win at a high level, to really do it at a high level, he was going to need to go to a D1. I'm proud of him. I applaud all the work he did bringing exposures to HBCUs. And I'm going to be following him in Colorado. Like I said, let's not knock this man who chose to go to HBCU, who chose to every single day he was on TV screaming about bringing exposure to HBCUs and the kids playing there. Let's not knock him because he has his own dreams and his own aspirations, and he's going to go chase them in the D1. It's time for the next person to pick up that mantle, pick up that backpack. If we want to continue to bring exposure to HBCUs, then I ask everybody, don't knock the next man. Ask yourself, what are you doing? What's the next coach doing? So I'm all for it. Sorry, that's my rant. Rant's over.
No, you're good. And it's funny, Chris, basically you're asking, how do we like how he's bringing his son to Colorado?
That's funny. That goes to.
So I actually called my dad maybe 2 hours ago while I was at work, trying to plan how we were going to do this. And we briefly talked about, oh, you're frozen. Oh, you're good. We briefly talked about, I don't know if you guys have seen it in the chat. Let us know if you've seen it, but if you haven't, you need to go check it out. Deion Sanders both sat down and talked to all of the Jackson State players. And then I'm not sure if it was today or whenever it was, but he went to Colorado and talked to those players. And not only did he tell the Colorado players he's bringing his son, but he told them that he's bringing 10 more people from Jackson State, and basically that he's going to turn Colorado into Jackson State. That's the way I took it.
He didn't say he was going to turn it into Jackson State.
But he told everybody on that team, there are positions locked up, so hit the portal to make room. That quote for quote, that's literally what he said.
Let me say this.
Go ahead and hit the portal.
And this also goes to the point, right? Shedeur had a great season at Jackson State. If I'm a father, right? And obviously this is my son on the screen next to me, and I have the opportunity to get him more exposure, right? People are always going to have their feelings about whatever Shedeur did, no matter how big numbers he put up in the SWAC at a HBCU. But if he has the opportunity to get him more exposure as a father against D1 competition, if Shedeur can go do what he just did in the SWAC, in the Pac-12, now maybe he gets a little bit more exposure in terms of an NFL prospect. So this is another thing. Remember, Deion Sanders, first and foremost, and like most men who are fathers, right? My first priority will always be my kids, right? Not to knock Jackson State, not to knock the trials and tribulations that HBCUs go through in terms of funding and exposure. But his first priority has to be to his son. So if he has the ability to get him more exposure by bringing him to Colorado and letting him do his thing in the Pac-12, I'm for it. You got to take that opportunity.
Definitely. I mean, I like the hire. I do like it. I don't think you should knock him. But as you said, Alex said he was barely alive. Chris, you don't know, but Alex
was barely alive.
Alex, he's saying Nebraska over for the Colorado rivalry. So Alex is actually a Nebraska alum. So he went to Nebraska, just graduated a few years ago. So he's a diehard Nebraska fan. So I give him a lot of flack for it because they suck. But moving on.
Moving on. Hey, listen, respect, because Nebraska had a run in the 90s, the Tommy Frazier teams, Lawrence Phillips. I mean, they've had their runs.
But I mean, I like the hire. Like you said, the only thing that I don't like about it is he brought all those guys there, the Travis Hunters, the 4-stars, the other 5-star, and then he dips out on them. I'm assuming they all go with him. Yeah, I would hope so. But then I feel bad for the Colorado kids who've been there for 2-3 years, and they're coming in and just kind of taking over the team. And it's like, okay, bye, you got your spot taken. I don't really like that. Like, if you'd have to watch the video.
I'm gonna watch it.
So you have to watch the video. I like the way he first came into the room and like brought the aura, brought the energy. I really rocked with it. But then it felt disrespectful. The way he was talking to some of the kids in there, just because I'm sure some of those kids have been there for 3 or 4 years and they've been the heart and soul of that program. And you come in and basically say, I'm bringing my guys with me. If you don't like it, hit the portal. You can dip out. I didn't like that at all.
But let's be real. This is no knock. This is no knock. Colorado's been a losing program. Right? They don't have the talent that you would need to win in the Pac-12. Now, I'm not saying, let me say, I'm sure some of the kids are going to come from Jackson State. First, Deion's a big name. He's going to get talent from all over, right? We're talking about the portal. I would feel worse if we were still under the old rules of transferring, where everybody had to sit out a year, right? If Travis Hunter and all those kids, to include the Colorado kids. If those kids had to sit out a year because of a coaching change and a new direction, but all those kids get to transfer 1 year for free, one time for free, and play right away. So if they feel like Colorado's not the place for them. The thing you got to respect is at least Deion has came out and said it, right? Instead of, hey, I'm going to bring all these kids from Jackson State, which we all assumed was going to happen anyway. And I assumed the Colorado kids assumed that was going to happen. And then you wait, and then you try to beat them out, and then you don't. And now you're stuck in Colorado. At least, hey, he's telling you up front, hey, yo, I'm bringing some kids. If you want to hit the portal, hit it early. Go find a spot for yourself because I'm bringing some kids. I appreciate the honesty. Is it a rough message? Yes. But at least he's being honest.
Definitely. Moving on, though, this isn't going to be too long of a live stream. We might actually do – I actually like this. We should do this more often. We can make this a once a week kind of thing. If you guys are interested, those of you in the chat, let us know. But moving on to our next kind of order of business here. Let me pull it up. So we're going to briefly talk about each game here, each of the New Year's Six. We're not going to go over all the bowl games. We're going to have a more lengthy video closer to bowl weeks. And we're actually going to have a former Clemson football player on here. I don't know if he's in here right now. He doesn't have a Facebook, but we're going to have a former Clemson player on.
He's probably not on here.
Huh?
Well, then he's probably not on here.
Oh, there's a few people. Well, he doesn't use Facebook, but I don't know if he has one. He just doesn't use it. But
okay,
he's going to come on and kind of give us his insights on bowl. He won a national championship with Clemson. He won a few Orange Bowls as well, I believe.
I got some stories to tell about Scott too.
What story do you have to tell about Scott?
When that big motherfucker came in our house to spend the night, I thought he was a grown man. I thought he was a pedophile.
But we're gonna have he said, who the heck is ND gonna have a QB for the bowl game? I have no idea, but I think so. We're gonna get into that actually.
Yeah, I think before that's the first thing. The hard part, and this is going to be the same thing when we get into predictions. Obviously, hopefully, some of this is cleared out, but we don't know who's playing, right? You can assume some of these, right? I think Hendon Hooker is definitely not playing. I don't know if Bryce Young, Will Anderson are going to play. And you can kind of, outside of the playoff games, I assume you're going to see a lot of opt-outs, and that's the problem with the playoffs.
Yeah. So, I mean, just looking at this here, like I said, he's going to come on. We'll probably we may do a live show. I mean, that'll be cool. We'll probably do that in the next 2 weeks or so. Once we find out who's playing and who's not playing, it's hard to predict games when you don't know who's playing, obviously, and especially in these big games. So we're just going to go over the New Year's Six. So we'll start off. I mean, I don't want to go from top. We'll go from top to bottom, but we'll skip over the playoffs.
Yeah,
so
easy.
Obviously, you got Tennessee, Clemson. So, just before we do this, actually, to go back to my rant earlier, because I couldn't really finish it. The reason why I was so upset is because the tie-ins I feel like the tie-ins need to be removed because I want it to be removed this year and next year because right now you have the 4 best teams in the playoffs. Cool, whatever. I have no problems with that. But then I feel that if the committee is ranking 1 through 25, then the bowl games should literally be 1 through 4 playoffs. Each bowl game should be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, all the way to 25. The reason being is because the committee, in their eyes, had those 2 teams neck and neck right there next to each other as the same level of skill. There might be a bit of a drop-off in their eyes, whatever, but that was the next best team, so they should be playing them. It shouldn't be a team like USC who was about to go to the playoffs playing against a group of 5 team who, in my eyes, cannot hang with USC. News just came out today. Caleb Williams might not play because of a hamstring injury. But, I mean, I think even if Caleb Williams plays or not, they're going to blow them out. Tulane is not as good as USC. So I think –
I mean, they don't get that level of recruiting.
So if we just look at the rankings – give me 1 second. Let me pull up the rankings. Oh, I did not mean that.
And just as you're talking about this, even to mention the Caleb Williams thing, right? I think if this is a playoff game, Caleb Williams plays. But because it's Tulane, he's not going to play.
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, if college football had that format where the next team would just play the next team in a bowl game. So obviously you have 1 through 4 who's in the playoff, but we'd have an Alabama-Tennessee rematch. That game was obviously game of the year type game. Came down to a
but without Hendon Hooker, I think it would lose some appeal.
Yeah, but then you have Clemson, Utah. That would be a good game. Kansas State, USC. Yeah. I mean, I can keep going down the entire list.
Keep going down, right.
And obviously when you get to 25, because it's an uneven number, they would have to play somebody else. They can play North Carolina, whatever. And then
so the only hard part becomes the only hard part with your notion idea becomes that then you have to rank the bowl games by priority. You know what I'm saying? Like who gets the 5-6 game?
Well,
And
it would have to be a
some
New Year's
bowlers
six.
going to
It
be
would be a New
mad.
Year's six.
Why?
Well, it
Why?
would be a New
Why
Year's
am I?
six. And I mean,
Well,
and they could rotate the same way they do the playoffs. They rotate.
Yeah.
So I mean, they could just rotate. I mean, that's just what I think. But I mean, again,
But I
I mean,
like the notion. I like the
I
idea.
mean, it is what it is. Obviously, we only have to deal with this for 2 more years, and then the playoffs going to have 12 teams, so it's not really going to matter. But that was my gripe. Again, I don't think Clemson should have made the playoff. But me personally, I wanted to play Alabama. That's just me personally. I find I'm not going to be. I mean, I'm going to be interested in Clemson playing Tennessee because I watch every Clemson game, but I'm not as interested. Like if we beat Tennessee, okay, I don't care. It's not. I mean, it doesn't matter to me. They don't have Hendon Hooker, so it wouldn't matter. But if
So
we beat
how much
Alabama,
are you concerned? How much are you concerned, especially Clemson? Because I think this game means more to Clemson than, and I mean bowl season as a whole, means more to Clemson than maybe some other teams. Because I think Clemson, it's about momentum going into next year, right? It's another opportunity. Obviously, Cade, as we know, DJ got benched in the ACC championship. Cade came in, looked great, right? So I think for Cade, it's another opportunity to go out and play. And then it's about momentum. It's about how does that offense look as you get ready to go into the offseason and prepare for, for Clemson. It's Clemson's one of those teams where it's championship or it was a bad season. So I think because of the quarterback change so late in the season, this is much bigger to Clemson than maybe some of the other teams that are not in the playoffs.
No, definitely. I mean, I think with this past game yesterday, with this past game yesterday, with how good Cade played, he needs to have a good game in the Orange Bowl, like you said, to take momentum. But I mean, even if let's say we lose this game, I don't think it's like the end all be all because he's had he'll have a month to prepare as the number one guy, but I mean he's gonna have an entire off season to prepare as the number one guy. There's not going to be any sort of controversy heading into week one next year. He's the number one guy. DJ just announced, those of you who don't know, DJ just announced that he's going to the transfer portal that opens up tomorrow. So he's out of there. There's no more controversy. There's no more talks of who's going to play quarterback anymore at Clemson. They've deferred to Cade.
And I think even if DJ stayed, that was a done deal.
Yeah, I mean, and they deferred to Cade. So, I mean, I think we're going to win big. I don't see Tennessee hanging with him, especially without Hendon Hooker. That's why I wanted to play Alabama because I feel like out of all the teams that were left, Alabama was the only team that I could see that would really give us problems because I think styles make fights. And, yeah, we lost to Notre Dame, obviously. We lost to South Carolina. Cade didn't play any of those games. And, I mean, we have a quarterback now who can put up points. So, I mean, he just fits our offense a little bit better. So I think it's going to be a bigger margin of victory. I think we opened up only as a 3-point favorite. I think we're going to win by more than 3. I could be wrong, but that's just my take on it. Like I said, we're going to do more of an in-depth look on. See you later, Chris. Thank you for stopping by, man.
All right, Chris.
But we'll see. We'll do more of an in-depth video later on. Like I said, when Scott comes on, I don't want to take too much time on each game just because we don't know who's playing. Who knows what will happen? But moving on. Oh, you have something to say?
No. Hey, first, shout out to my man Chris. Does the Sports Junkie show with me. I'm his co-host. Yeah, I'm not going to talk much about these games. Obviously, I would have liked this game much better if Hendon Hooker was playing. And I know we've talked about it a couple times. I think that is going to hurt the draw of this game a little bit.
No, definitely. I don't think this is going to – I think if they would have put Clemson up against Alabama, that game would have been watched just as much as the playoff. That just the storyline of them playing Alabama so many times, I think.
I mean, the history, especially recent history, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but moving on to the next one, what do you think about this Sugar Bowl, Alabama versus Kansas State?
Again, so just looking at it, if I assumed that everybody was playing, I believe that Alabama would be attempting to thump Kansas State. And if we just talk about Jimmy's and Joe, if we're just talking Jimmy's and Joe's, right? Alabama, we're talking a top 3 team recruiting dang near every year against Kansas State that is just not. I don't even know if they've been top 25 in recruiting. Now, again, you can X and O a little bit of that, but I think an upset Alabama that's attempting to show everybody that we deserved to get into the playoffs, right? Only their second time missing the playoffs since the playoffs started. I think I think they're going to try to thump Kansas State anyway. My only concern with Alabama is does Will Anderson play? Does Bryce Young play? And who else chooses to opt out as they get ready to go to the NFL in a game that really, because it's not the playoffs, may not mean as much to Alabama, right? Alabama beats Kansas State. It's hey, we beat Kansas State, right? Kansas State beats Alabama. They are probably putting a national championship banner up. You know what I'm saying? The 7 Kansas State fans that are there are probably storming the field, right? They're probably going to call it a national holiday in Kansas if they're able to beat Alabama. So I think it means much more to Kansas State. And with some of the opt-outs that I expect to hear from Alabama, you know, this game could be more surprising than I believe the talent would dictate it is.
Yeah, I mean, to me, other than the next game we're going to talk about, this game to me, I mean, I'll probably watch a little bit of it, but I think it doesn't matter if I'm playing quarterback for Alabama. Alabama's going to beat the hell out of Kansas State. Kansas State is not on the same level as Alabama. No, their backups could start at Kansas State. So, I mean, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who plays for Alabama. I think they're going to beat them pretty bad. I would assume Will Anderson's not playing. I would assume Bryce Young is not playing. I'm sure a bunch of other people on the offensive and defensive line won't play. I'm sure linebackers and receivers won't play. I don't know about the running back room, but a lot of people are not going to play in this game. I don't think anybody from Kansas State will sit out. I mean, this is going to be a big game for them. This is basically a championship game. So it's really going to come down to how good Jalen Milroe can play. I'm assuming he's going to start. But I mean, like I said, I don't think Kansas State's even going to compete in this game. I think it's going to be ugly. But moving on to the next one, we're going to skip over the playoffs. So moving on to the next one, you have Tulane at USC, or not at USC, against USC. And I talked about this a little bit earlier. To me, this is a joke. It's not even like the Cincinnati or the UCF. Like, I don't think Tulane is going to even be close to USC. Even if Caleb Williams doesn't play, I just don't think that they're on the same level as them. Even as bad as USC's defense is, I just think they have much more talent, better coaching, more experience. Tulane does not play against the same type of talent USC has played against. I mean, USC just played UCLA, Utah, and Notre Dame, and Tulane has been playing Group of 5 teams the entire year. So, I mean, I don't think – go ahead.
Yeah, no. I mean, and that's to your point. All respect due to Tulane. Obviously, they won their conference. But, yeah, this game shouldn't have been made. Just Tulane again, and I think this goes back to your comment, Kansas State versus Alabama, right? I don't think there's a player on USC's roster that wouldn't be a starter at Tulane. That wouldn't probably be the highest recruited player at Tulane.
Yeah, and I mean, it's kind of frustrating because you have number 16 Tulane playing against USC, and then you have a team like, let's see, what other top teams are not in a bowl game? Like Florida State. Prime example, like Florida State is going to go play 6-6 Oklahoma when they could be playing. That would have been nice. They could be playing USC, and Tulane can go play Oklahoma. I think Tulane versus Oklahoma would be semi-competitive. I don't think this game is going to be competitive at all. Now, mind you, I do think the Florida State Oklahoma game is going to be competitive just because it's 2 Power 5 teams. But I just think Florida State deserves to be in a better bowl game. I just think they've earned that with how they've been playing as good as football as anybody in the country in the last 4 to 5 weeks. And like I said, I'm not a Florida State fan. I hate Florida State. I don't like them at all. But I think they've earned a chance to play against another top team, because if they go in and beat Oklahoma, it's, oh, you were supposed to beat Oklahoma. They're 6-6. They suck. They lose to Oklahoma, then it's, oh, we all said Florida State was back and they just lost to Oklahoma. So to me, it's stupid to me. And I mean, in this situation, same thing as USC. You're supposed to beat Tulane. But if you lose to Tulane, that's exactly why you weren't in the playoff. That's why it's just, to me, like, they just need to do a better job of putting teams in bowl games to where both teams, there's a reason they need to play. Obviously, it's not the playoffs, but it's a reason for them to get up for the game. Like USC, what's the point of them playing them? There's no point. You gain nothing out of it. Let's see. Tulane's going to shock the world. Justin Strickland. Relax, bro. They're not going to shock the world. Alex says, should have had Bama versus Tulane, the Tide versus the Green Wave.
I actually like that. That's pretty funny.
that would have been 100-0. But moving on to the next one, you got the last New Year's Six game other than playoff. You got the Rose Bowl. How do you feel about the Rose Bowl?
Yeah, so I think because these are two teams that probably have been out of the playoff picture for a while, that are and this is a traditional for conferences. This is a traditional big game, right? So you have the traditional Big Ten team versus the Pac-12 team, the Pac-12 champion. I think both of them are trying to prove their mantle. So I think this is going to be a really good game. I have this kind of pegged as the best non-playoff game,
So
really.
do I. So do I.
Um, hmm,
So do I.
yeah, I'm excited to see this because I really want to see how good Utah is. Right, we've seen Utah beat USC twice. They dropped some other games that they probably shouldn't have. I want to see how good they are playing somebody because and that'll help us kind of get a measure on what the Pac-12 is. Right, when they go play Penn State, who's a good Big Ten team. That'll give us a measure of what the Pac-12 is. So I expect this to be a really good game. I'm excited about it.
So I think this is going to be the best non-playoff New Year's Six game. But
Yeah.
I think so. Let me ask you this before I give my case. What do you think? Do you think this is going to be the best bowl game besides the playoffs? Or is there any other bowl games that like you looked at and you were like, I'm going to watch that game. Like I'm excited for that game. Was there any other ones?
There's some. And let me get back to all the bowl games.
So my favorite game that I saw was North Carolina, Oregon. I think that game is going to be really good. It's the Holiday Bowl. Sterling, if you're in here, go to that game. You need to go to that game. I wish I could go, but I'll be working. But I want to go to that game so bad. I think that game's going to be a lot of offense. Hopefully, Bo Nix plays. But I really think that game's going to be good. Drake May should be playing. I think two really good offenses. Oregon, who 3 weeks ago had aspirations at the playoffs. North Carolina 3 weeks ago had aspirations at the playoffs. So I think that game is going to be really good. It's going to be a lot of high-powered offense. It's going to be high scoring. And for the Holiday Bowl, I think it's really good.
I think that there's some games I want to see. The Real Quest Bowl, that Illinois versus Mississippi State, right? And I think that's kind of middle of the road Big Ten team versus a middle of the road SEC team. But yeah,
Texas Washington's going to be good.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I think that Penn State Utah game is at least the now obviously who I'm watching do their thing. Let me drink my Georgia tea real fast. Let me drink my Georgia.
Don't choke on it again.
I know, but at the end of because there's a lot of these games, a lot of these bowl games that I'm gonna be honest, I'm not gonna watch.
Like which one? Like, do you feel like you just don't? I mean, obviously, you're not going to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of go down this list.
I'm not going
to watch Cincinnati, Louisville.
No, I mean, like of ranked teams. I mean, of ranked teams. Like, what ranked games do you feel like you're not interested in?
Well, I'm not going to watch the Florida State Oklahoma game. I don't think that's a good game. I will, and again, because I'm also a Big Ten fan, I will probably watch Maryland, North Carolina State. I want to see that. Pitt versus UCLA, and yes. What's up, Alex? I don't.
What does he have to say? Keep talking. Maybe he might be typing something long or something.
Yeah. A whole soliloquy. I want to see Pitt. Obviously, I'm a Miles Austin fan, so I want to see if he can get some PT.
Okay, wait 1 second. 1 second. Kelvin, would you rather have played Michigan for the revenge game, or are you happy with the possibility of meeting in the championship?
Oh man! So if you've seen my Facebook page, this is a great question. I wanted Michigan early. I wanted to, because let me be honest. Let's just say now I think Michigan will beat TCU, but let's say Michigan loses to TCU and Ohio State beats Georgia. And then Ohio State beats TCU in the championship. I will still feel a little unfulfilled in a season where Michigan can say they beat us.
It's funny. It's funny you say that. That's what I have happening.
Yeah, if it was an opportunity to win the championship and beat Michigan, that would make it so sweet. At the end of the day, what I'm hoping for, and I'm going to be honest, I am rooting for Michigan against TCU, and obviously I'm rooting for Ohio State against Georgia, and I want to play them in the national championship. I want to play the game with all the marbles on the line. I think that would be amazing.
Yeah, I think that would be like an epic storyline for college football.
At the end of the day, we lost, right? So I think we just have to be, if you want to say we backed our way into the playoffs, hey, we didn't win our conference championship. We didn't even win our division. We got blown out by Michigan. It is what it is. So we're happy to be in. And I was willing to take whatever matchup, as long as our name wasn't at 5. Hey, and we were gonna. My assumption was, even if TCU was 4, we probably were going to see Georgia at some point anyway. We probably were going to need to beat Georgia at some point anyway. So hey, let's get that out of the way early, and hopefully we get to face off against Michigan in the national championship.
Yeah. So I mean, kind of moving on into the.
I drove to Georgia to get this tea. I want y'all to know
that. Shut up, dude. You're doing too damn much. So moving on, this is how we'll end the show today, the first live stream, but we'll kind of talk about each of these playoff games. I don't want to give too much predictions because this could be it can be an entire video to post. But I think, in my opinion, the committee got it right. I think they got the 4 most deserving teams. Now, do I think Alabama could beat some of these teams? Yes. Do I think TCU would lose to USC? Yes. I mean, but at the end of the day, they got the 4 most deserving teams with the best resume. So I think TCU has earned and Ohio State have earned their way into the playoffs, and they have a chance to prove it against their opponent. And if they lose, then they lose, but they had a chance to prove it. I don't think that, because if that's the case, why are we even playing football if we're just going to say Alabama can beat them? There's no point.
We should just look at rosters at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, and then have no point to play. So I think that the committee got it right. Michigan against TCU, Georgia against Ohio State. In my opinion, I think this game is going to go down as one of the game of the year type games. It's going to be very, very competitive. I mean, I'm hoping that both these games are competitive. But I think this is going to be one of the good playoffs that we've ever had. And I'm hoping I pray that TCU wins it all. I just want to see something different. I want to see the underdog. I want to see the underdog win it all. And also, I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. My dad's an Ohio State fan. I have a bunch of Georgia friends that are fans of them. I have a bunch of Michigan friends that are fans of them. I know no TCU fans. I know none of them. So if they win, I have to hear from nobody. So I am a TCU fan for the next month and a half. I hope they win it all. And I think that would be good for college football. I don't know if they even have a national championship in their history. So it'll be really dope to see an unranked team who hasn't been ranked since week 6, who didn't get ranked until week 6, come in as a heavy underdog to all these 3 other teams and win the championship. That would be awesome for college football. I think it would be awesome.
Yeah, I think my view on this is very clear. But Ohio State is a flawed team. Now, what I hope happens over the next month, as we march to December 31st, is that we get healthy. I'm not using this as an excuse for Michigan because Michigan had injuries as well. But if we lose, I want to lose at full steam. So I'm hoping that Mayan Williams, that Trey Henderson, that even Jackson Smith and Jigba are able to play for the playoffs. Hopefully, Ryan Day had an interview this morning.
Did not look like he was confident in coming back. I'm gonna be honest with you.
He said that Travion Henderson and Mayan Williams he expects back, but he said he'll know more about Jackson Smith and Jigba
in a couple of days.
In the next couple of days. Jackson Smith and Jigba seemed to make comments that sounded like he was going to be back. Man, I hope he's back. Again, if you guys don't remember, probably one of the best wide receivers talent-wise in college football last year. If we can mix him with Marvin Harrison. Oh, my goodness. Why can't Marvin Harrison Jr. With Mbuka, again, Georgia's an amazing team. All respect to them. I just want to be at full speed when we take them on. You know who I'm pulling for. And, in my head, I have figured out a way that we win it all. So we'll obviously get more into the breakdown as we get closer, but you know who I'm pulling for to win it all.
Yeah, and then the second or the next game, the next playoff game, you have, like I said, Michigan and TCU. I'm hoping that TCU wins this game. I'm pretty sure they're going to be a heavy underdog in this game, but I'm hoping they win it. Now, I wouldn't mind seeing Ohio State, Michigan in the championship. That would be great for storylines. I think it would be good for college football as well. But for whatever reason, if TCU makes it out or if Ohio State loses, I want TCU to win it all just because it would be something different. Obviously, Michigan hasn't won one either. But I don't really want Michigan to win it all. I'd rather have TCU win it.
Oh my goodness, please.
Yeah.
If Ohio State doesn't win it, then to me it's anybody but Michigan.
Yeah, I'd rather have TCU win it all. I just feel like it'll be better for college football to see someone else, because then at least then it's somebody other than the 4 teams who win it every time.
Well, I have a number of Georgia. I have to think. I have a number of Georgia fans too, but even more annoying to me are SEC fans. So, and I think I'd have to hear SEC fans if Georgia wins it. I don't know. Yeah, I think if Ohio State doesn't win it, I want TCU to win it too.
I'm sure there's SEC fans in the chat right now. There's got to be SEC fans everywhere you go.
Yeah,
you can't avoid them
at all.
But that is going to wrap up our first live stream here at Clash of Cultures. Like I said before, we post every Wednesday. I mean, we missed a week because of Thanksgiving. We post every Wednesday. College football is starting to wind down, so we're going to do a few more episodes of college football. In the middle of the break between bowl season, or from now until bowl season, we'll probably talk about NFL, some NBA. We should honestly go live every Sunday if you're down to do that.
Yeah, I don't have nothing going on.
Okay, well, that'll be the new thing. We'll go live every Sunday. Thank you guys for stopping by. Make sure you guys check out the YouTube channel, Clash of Cultures on YouTube, Clash of Cultures podcast on YouTube. Go subscribe. Appreciate it, Alex. Go subscribe. Make sure you guys share the channel right here. Share the page,
please.
Share the stream. Reach as many people as we can so we can keep this community growing.
And before we break, I just got to leave with one thing.
Oh my!
Go Navy, beat Army.
Oh my goodness! I'm not even gonna watch that game, to be honest with you.
I'm watching.
I never watched it. I never watched that game. But we will see you guys next time. And until then, peace out.